What's up, everyone? All right, so in today's episode, I'm going to give you my watch list for Monday morning and the game plan for the last full week for the month of August. This has been an incredible summer with some huge momentum, and just on Friday, the S&P 500 put in a huge green day. Overall markets across the board were surging up on comments from Jerome Powell, chairman of the Federal Reserve, who said that he would be open to considering a rate cut. It wasn't even like the most bullish statement, but in context, it was very bullish. But he hedged it by saying that still there is this challenge of, will tariffs increase inflation? Because when inflation goes up, usually you need to increase interest rates to slow down the economy and to slow down spending. So the costs and the prices go down, right? Demand goes down, and so the prices come down. So we're in a really interesting position here. I mean, there's some data that's showing that the jobs market is softening a little bit. Obviously, the person that puts out that data ended up getting fired, new person coming in. So who knows? The data will probably look great for the rest of the year. So if that data looks great for the rest of the year, then the big variable is inflation. But right now, inflation year over year, based on all of the data that we've seen, has not been alarming. In fact, it's very close to the target rate that the Federal Reserve had set way back in 2022 when they jacked up interest rates because the inflation was like 6%. It was crazy. So now we've come back to target, but the interest rates have stayed high, right? A lot of people are saying, reduce the rates, reduce the rates. And when you do reduce the rates, the market's going to surge up. And now all these companies will be able to refinance the money that they're borrowing, which a lot of them do borrow for working capital. Small cap stocks are going to be able to borrow money more easily, and that's going to flood money into the economy. It's going to flood money into the market. So there's no question that that's going to happen. I think the big question is, will it then cause prices to go back up, especially like in housing and stuff like that? All of a sudden, people now have easier access to money with lower rates, stock market at all-time highs. Will they borrow money to buy houses? And then housing prices are going to continue to be really high, which is a problem. But nonetheless, we're in an environment where the overall market is very strong. And so small caps naturally have been pretty strong, except that over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a little bit of a slowdown. And that's been in a large part because the crypto treasury catalyst got overplayed. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about during today's game plan, just to give you guys kind of a big picture of the market that we're in right now. Now, typically August is a slower month for me seasonally. That's not been uncommon. Over the course of the last 10 years, I don't know that August has ever been my best month of the year. It'd be very rare. It's generally a slower month. So given that August is generally a slower month, that didn't surprise me this year that things did cool off a little bit. But here's something that's really interesting. Over the last, whole year, really, we've seen some stocks that have made absolutely unbelievable moves when they've had a headline that they're getting a private placement and it's an infusion of $1 billion of capital. And that money is specifically to be used to buy cryptocurrency. And the company is going to hold that cryptocurrency on their balance sheet basically as an asset. It's just sitting there. So now when you invest in this company, you're investing sort of in a way in that cryptocurrency that they've bought, because it represents especially if this is a small cap company worth only like $20 or $30 million, and now they're holding $1 billion of a cryptocurrency on their balance sheet. The company's essentially now just a holding company for this cryptocurrency. And so the way this works is these big institutional investors said, look, we want this company to buy all this cryptocurrency. We'll give you the money to do it. And we now own a percentage of the company. And if they hold the stock, then, they're holding the cryptocurrency kind of through that. And so we saw a number of these companies that went from like $5, $6, $7 a share to over $100. Just incredible moves. People made millions of dollars. And in fact, some of these institutions that bought, like 20 million shares of the company in exchange for all that money, or 50 million shares, were at least on paper with mark-to-market pricing showing an unrealized gain of billions of dollars, almost unthinkable. And so we saw this happen back to back on, dozens of different stocks. But See, here's the thing. These small cap companies, they have these PR teams that are very strategic about trying to keep their stock price up and trying to promote public awareness of their stock. And so a lot of companies started noticing their peers doing this treasury catalyst thing and their stock going up. And so, you know what? We want a piece of this pie also. So we're going to do it. And next thing you know, you have all these companies putting out very similar headlines, and then a lot of companies taking advantage of it. And as soon as their stock price goes up 50 or 100%, they start dumping shares on the market. And they're selling those shares directly on the market through an offering in order to boost the cash on their balance sheet. Now, some of them said they were going to do this to boost the cash on the balance sheet to then take the cash to go buy cryptocurrency. But nonetheless, that's a lot of selling. With a private placement, the institution is assigned or is granted shares of the company, and typically they hold them for a period of time. So there's not an immediate effect of selling on the open market right after receiving all this capital. In fact, usually after the private placement, the price goes up for quite some time. So unfortunately, that crypto treasury catalyst got overplayed. And the result is that now traders don't trust it when they see that headline. So the stocks don't go up. And shorts, made some good money shorting the backside of some of these as they came back down. So that has been sort of the flavor of the current small cap market. And so a lot of these PR teams that run the PR cycle for small cap companies are waiting for the next theme to present itself, right? So we get the next theme, and all of a sudden, whatever it is, these companies are going to be putting out PRs tied into that theme. So how does a theme start? A stock needs to go up, 500 or 1,000%. Now, the biggest moves that we saw last week were on lower priced biotech stocks. And we saw some lower priced stocks that were in biotech as well that made decent moves. EEIQ on Friday was decent. But we saw a number of low priced biotech stocks that made some big moves. Biotech is like our tried and true catalyst. A small cap biotech company that puts out really good clinical trial results is an attractive headline. I mean, just any way you look at it, that can be a really good headline. So we can always kind of revert back to that theme, but it's hard for other companies to jump on that theme because you either have good clinical trial results or you don't, right? So all these companies can't just jump on that on like a sympathy headline the way they can with using OpenAI or NVIDIA or whatever the case is. THAR. So this is a stock that is going to be the first one to put on the watch list for Monday. And I'm going to keep it on the watch list all week until it fails. Because right now, you had a couple of big days up, and now it's going sideways and it's not dying. It's a U.S. biotech company that had really good news, which started the initial move. So a valid catalyst. Now, we'll dig a little deeper into the filings in just a second. For those of you guys tuning in, perhaps for the first time, I can't believe it. This is your first time watching an episode. My name's Ross Cameron. I'm a full-time trader. You probably already knew that, but I'm just saying it anyways. And right now, I am not in my typical office. In fact, I am in the back of a 4x4 Mercedes Sprinter van. I've got monitors hanging from the ceiling. I've got a huge Starlink in-motion antenna mounted to the roof. If I park in front of anyone's house, guaranteed they're going to think it's a surveillance van, looking them, spying on them. And in fact, right now I'm pulled over on the side of the road. So I'm pulled over on the side of the road, and you know where I am? I'm in Canada. So I'm up in Canada, and let's do a little speed test. It was 110 the last time I checked it. So we're coming into 130, 110, 120 megabits per second. Fantastic. So this is my fourth year traveling and trading during the end of the summer. And so I've taken trips out west in the US and up to Canada and camping and cooking on the fire and just, enjoying being out away from, away from it all. And the nice thing, though, is that thanks to, being able to be connected with a Starlink, I'm able to continue my daily routine of trading. And so I continue to trade every single day. Now, you would think, gosh, this guy must be paid a lot of money by Starlink, SpaceX to be saying all this. I'm not paid a penny. I wish they could give me some stock benefit because I really do speak highly of Starlink when it works. But when it doesn't work, I get infuriated. And that's been my problem over these last 4 years is that when it works, it's awesome. But sometimes it just doesn't work at all. And that's frustrating. So I've got a 5G backup. So I've got two sources of internet, and I will be trading every single day this coming week. So if you want to watch over my shoulder from inside the mobile command center here, make sure you check out the 2-week trial. It'll be pinned to the top of the comments and linked in the description. You should definitely check that out. It'll give you the last week of August, first week of September. So we'll finish off the month of August. We'll get the new month off to a strong start, and you'll be able to see how I'm doing it. Right now, I'm definitely exercising a little bit more caution. And I want to highlight something else that's kind of interesting here. So this is my Trader View reports here. This is the last 10 years of trading data. And this is a table of my distribution of trades by year, which is the total number of trades I've taken each year. So this year I've only taken less than 3,000 trades so far. Sounds like a lot, but comparatively you could see it's not that much. So you probably would conclude that this year I'm up probably half as much as 2024 and, less than half as much as 2020 back there, 2021. And you'd be wrong because, in fact, this year I am right now about tied with 2020, just crossing last week over $5 million in profit on the year. And I've done it with half as many trades. Less is more. Quality over quantity. Now, 2024 was a good year, but I took a lot of trades to get what I got there. I really took a lot of trades. I was over trading. I was eager that things were finally bouncing off of 2023, which was really slow, but this is pretty remarkable. 2023 versus 2025, the total number of trades, marginally different. The total profit, substantially different. We're in a much hotter market right now than we were in during 2022 and 2023, which is when we were really suffering from the sort of unprecedented hike in interest rates that we had to control inflation. So, all right, so back to the watch list and the game plan for the week ahead. So THAR, so if I go into the filings here on this, one of the things that I check are recent prospectus for offerings and the possibility that this is a company that will need to raise money. So the reason I worry about that is because when you have a stock that makes a big move like this, it's great that it's holding up, but I worry that are they going to do a secondary offering and is that going to force the price down? So if we look at this 8K back from July 28th, it actually shows that they priced a $1.7 million offering, 500,000 pre-funded warrants to acquire shares plus shares, and it was at a pretty low price of $1.78. So the people that received those shares back in just July, that's 500,000 shares, right? Well, I guess 1 million when you combine the shares and the warrants. So they got a million shares worth at $1.74. What's the current price? $4.74. They're up $1 a share, $2 a share, $3 a share. It's $3 million. $3 million right there. I mean, the ROI on that, they've more than doubled their money in less than a month. But will this company do another offering to raise more money? So the way we know this is there's a couple different things we can do. And I do look at the filings. And what I look at, number one, is to see if they have a shelf registration. And they do. They have a shelf registration right here. And this is going to be a registration that will give them the right to sell shares on the open market. And typically, it gives them the right to sell a lot of shares, and then they can tap this shelf at any time. So 4.2 million shares. So what we know is they sold, let's see, they had this was one of the prospectus documents that were filed. But they had, let's see, that 8K there. This was selling, and then on the 25th, they sold another, million shares, and that was at a lower price. And then they brought someone to the board. Okay, so they've sold at this point over 2 million shares. So they still have 2 million shares that they appear that they could sell on the open market. And so my concern on this would be that, we could be in a situation where it looks good until, boom, you get that headline that they've just sold more shares and the price drops. I don't know that that's going to happen, but it's just a concern that I would have. So the longer this stock goes without putting out that kind of news, the longer it can hold up, then we're going to start be thinking about looking for that move through the high, right? The next leg up. Now, I should say something. I just said start be thinking about. So I did have a little bit of Dramamine today. I I like looking at the water. I don't like being on the water. So I had to take a ferry. Um, Maritime, vessel warning out today because of the hurricanes that have been going through. They said the sea swells would be big and the knots of the wind would be high. A lot of knots, a lot of swells. And so within like 20 minutes of being on the boat, I was like, this is a terrible mistake. I should not have got on this boat. I don't do well as a seafaring person, which is ironic because I was actually named after my great uncle, or my great uncle, Ross, who was in the Merchant Marines. Anyways, nonetheless. So I took some Dramamine and I slept for a little bit on the ferry. And I was, dozing off because I was feeling just awful. So I was trying to sleep it off and I fell asleep. And then someone comes over and shakes me as one of the guys that works on the ferry. And I was kind of jolted awake. I was like, he said, those big swells that we were just having? And I was like, yeah, yeah. He said, we had to get rid of some weight. And I'm sorry to say it, but we had to throw your van off the side. We had to. And I said, what? You did what? And he said, there you go. See, you're awake now. We're here. We've arrived. You can head back to your van. And I said, my God. So he woke me up with a real start. This guy's got a sense of humor. He must love doing this. He must find suckers like me every day. So while I did get myself woken up, I guess I don't still feel it 100%. So if you notice my speech is a little unusual today, that's probably why. All right, so back to it. THAR. So this one, I'd say it's a maybe from last week. So big move from last week. It's a maybe. This is a stock that's actually off of our continuation scanner. And again, normally I start at the top of the scan and work my way down. Today, for no apparent reason, I started at the bottom to work my way up. So, we're just going to do this in reverse. So other stocks on the continuation scan, CGTX, 62 million share float. That's a no-go. EQ, that's a no-go. ADN, the float is fine. So energy and renewable energy producers, the stock has been up quite a bit, but it keeps kind of having these days, like you see, this sort of pop and drop. I think I'm not into it. I don't think I could trust it. TLS. I don't know. The float's too high. XFOR. This one was another one that made a decent move this week, and it just keeps holding up. But my problem with trading something like this is, I really like trading these when they're down, kind of at this level, where it's really low, because then I feel like that's my max loss right down here. So I like getting in on like this day. Up here, I start to feel like short sellers are just going to start kind of cost averaging into it to wait for that kind of reversal back down when momentum, dies. So I just feel like there's more downside risk than upside potential. LASE, I've traded that one before, kind of over it as well. Doesn't really make clean moves. Fossil floats too high. These ones, none of these are particularly attractive. So THAR is the first stock on the watch list for continuation going into next week. Recent reverse splits. So Friday, I did trade ZNB, pops up, completely reverses. It even had news, and it did not hold up. That's concerning. That speaks to the market we're in. I thought this was going to work because it had this gap on the daily chart, as you can see right here, from 502 all the way up to 1388. So I was like, man, that's a nice window. And in a hotter market, I bet this would have gone. Friday was not, although the overall market got hotter later, it wasn't hot overall. So that was no good. HTCO. So this one, $9, $9 a share, somewhat recent reverse split, but very light on volume right now. I would keep it on watch as a maybe if it comes out with news. I just know that when these reverse split stocks have news, they can move quickly. So that split was on the 8th. I'm just going to look for splits within the last week or so, because the other ones we would have already talked about in previous recaps. So SLRX right now, that's like I said, that's that chart where it's been beaten up. All we need is that, nice news headline off the low, and boom, we've got something to work with. This SLXN's a little older. Let's see. The split, I mean, is a little older at 729. 819. Did I see this one already? Yeah. Again, beaten up chart. Price is a little too high at $22. The problem with that is that once it starts to pop up, it's going to move so quickly that next thing you know, it'd be at 25 and 30, and you'd be like, I can't buy this. It's too expensive. CHSN. It's a Chinese name. All right, and then GIBO. So another one that's been beaten up for a long time. Hong Kong company, though. So any headline that they put out, you already take with a grain of salt because it's like hard to really know. So this is just something to be kind of aware of right now. A couple of recent reverse splits. Recent reverse splits can work really well in a hot market. In a colder market, sometimes they just pop and drop. Recent IPOs top moving, kind of similar. A recent IPO can work. This is a Hong Kong one, so they've already liquidated. This is basically worthless, I would say, at this point. MAGH, Singapore, already is liquidated pretty hard. DKI. Yeah, I could see it maybe, but again, Hong Kong company. It's interesting. These Chinese Hong Kong companies have been kind of IPOing and it's not been great. So I don't see any recent IPOs right now. So now after hours top gainers, MRM was the leader on Friday, up 46%. Oh, darn it. I closed the wrong window. Let me just log back in here. I just got to enter my password. So yeah, that one was up after hours, but not a sector that I'm particularly interested in. So that one's one that I don't really care for. Hang on, I'm just going to open this up again. Okay. All right, so I'll move this down here. So my windows automatically pop up. When I use Day Trade Dash, just to give you guys like kind of a quick tutorial. So each of your time frames, I save 5 minute, 1 minute. When you save a time frame, it saves the chart to the time frame you saved it. So if you just did 1 minute chart, or you saved you loaded a layout, like one of my layouts, Ross layout or whatever, and then you just made 5 versions of it, they'll all be the same time frame. That doesn't help you. So save one is 1 minute, 5 minute, daily, 10 second. Then when you open a chart, if you want to click a chart like this, click that little pop out right there, and boom, you're going to jump this out here. Now you've got your pop out working. So you want to go ahead and add some more charts. You can add a couple more, just like this. And then you make this whole window exactly how you like it. You save your windows, you link them up together, and then you can save this pop out. So you start saving your layouts. Save current window. So I've got the pop outs, and then when you log out, when you finally go to log out, save and log out, and that'll save your layout. So when you log back in, it'll automatically pop out your windows. Okay, so so I guess at this point, the after hours top gainers on Friday was the last thing we were looking at. And we didn't have a lot, and I don't know really that these are going to carry well from Friday into Monday. So I think probably it's not going to work. So my guess is that going into Monday, what I'm going to focus on will be what's on the leading scanner, and just keeping half an eye on THAR and a couple of these other stocks that have been on the recent reverse split scanner in the last couple of weeks, just to see if there's anything there that starts to get a little bit of momentum. So that's the game plan for Monday. I will be streaming 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here from Canada, and really looking forward to you guys being in the broadcast and tuning in and learning as much as you can from me. I hope you enjoy the trial. For those of you guys that are brand new, they're going to be starting it this week. It's $20 for 2 weeks. It's a great value for your money. You help cover the market data costs, and that's it. I mean, I put this forward for you guys because I know many of you will enjoy it and will eventually become members, and you'll gain insights during your 2 weeks. And if you don't become a member, then that's just, something you could take away with you and enjoy forever. And so anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. And reminder, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, and there's no guarantee you'll find success. Whether you trade with me or you learn on your own. So please manage your risk, take it slow, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning.